on to our speaker. We've been waiting for months for this speaker because he was scheduled earlier, and we got to the uh, I don't know, the pretty much showtime, and discovered that he was having technical difficulties and was not going to be able to do it. And so we went to Plan B, and we are delighted to see that he has returned to us. Larry Smith, Dr. Larry Smith, PhD. He is founder and CEO of Associates of Smithfield. He's going to be talking about a life in phases. And it's so interesting to hear Todd talk and Ann talk about, I've been doing this, now I want to do something different, because I assume that's exactly what Larry's going to be talking about. Living through change, a life in phases. He is an entrepreneur with expertise which spans major corporations to startups, to universities, to nonprofits. He's done it all. He has served in numerous roles, from team member to board member to CEO. These experiences have demonstrated his ability to define, establish, grow, streamline, and innovate organizations while increasing revenue and profits. He has served with formally structured and informal roles as a mentor, advisor, judge, and on boards of directors. These roles have taken place in the US and worldwide across many business sectors. Enjoying semi-retirement, another change, he remains active in many ways, from running several small businesses to volunteering as a business mentor for several universities and think tanks across the country. Travel, both in the US and internationally, has also been a big part of his life for both work and pleasure. He has been published and has spoken on several subjects, including technology, management structure, project management, and staffing. He is the proud parent of 4 successful children and 7 grandchildren. All right, a nice warm welcome to Larry Smith.
Good morning. Now I'm embarrassed. I must be old to have done all that. But before I even started, 2 things came to mind. I'm not real thrilled about a conversation about having enough hair to sustain a fire. One of the other things that came up is you talked about answering questions, hard questions. A really hard question is, what have you been doing since you lost your job? We've all lost jobs. I don't think anybody holds that against you. But that's a question you really have to be able to answer. I have a couple of thoughts. One of them is, I can't possibly talk about myself for an hour. But what I would like to do is share a little bit about what I have done professionally and personally, because they're really tied together. If you try to separate them, you fall apart. The old home work balance is something we all think about. And if you don't do something about it, you're going to head for trouble. And I want to talk a little bit about what I have done, what I've learned, and maybe a few things I should have learned and didn't. And I got a few suggestions and observations that have worked for me in trying to find in my next position. And then I'd be more than happy to open it up to anything. I'd feel much more comfortable in a question and answer or comment situation. And I'll start by saying that everybody's life comes in phases. We all think ours is unique, but quite frankly, if you go up at a high enough level to get a view of it, we're all pretty much the same. We all have things that happen at work, things that happen at home, things that happen in the family. And we're all in that same boat. We're all different, but they're all turbulent. And I might also talk about a career where inspiration comes and goes. We've all had days that right after the alarm clock goes off, the first thought is, oh God, not again. Inspiration comes and goes. Excuse me, it's allergy time for me. While inspiration may come or go, but being disciplined can't. Whether you want to or not, you just got to buckle down and do it. One of the other things I'm going to say a couple of times is that finding a job is a job. And the way you go about it is going to show a lot about how you would work at whatever job you land. When I was doing that, I got up in the morning, had my coffee as if I was going to the office, and set out my day. I set out a calendar. I'm going to make this many calls. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a lot of reading, a lot of reading. But before I go much farther, let me talk a little bit about you. You know, we all have a story, and an awful lot of our stories are very, very similar. For instance, my first job out of college, having worked grew up in a farm community, so I started working as soon as the adults thought I could do anything. But I started off in a huge company, and I found that that was not for me. Sadly, that took, 15 or 18 years before I learned that. So I'm a slow learner, but I'd like to think a fairly good learner. But personally, I grew up with a father in the Air Force. I really think I was raised in very rural Kentucky. And when I say rural, I mean really rural. I was born at home in the one large room of the house, because that's where we went when Dad was deployed. And in fact, the doctor came by 2 days later to make sure I was, I don't know what. By then, who cares? But no one in either side of my family had ever gone to college. That was just not something we ever thought about. It was not something I knew anything about. But I was blessed. I was somewhat pushed into going to college. And in college, I hear a lot of people talk about the fun they had. I played ball. I worked all the way through, and I got an engineering degree. And what degree doesn't matter. It's got to be something marketable, in my view. If you went to college for 4 or 5 or 6, yeah, I got one kid like that, and you get out with nothing that's marketable, you got to really wonder, why did you go? If you just wanted to party, you can get a job and party. But I got on with a big company. Having been a service brat, I got used to traveling, moving a lot, so I ended up doing just that. I moved too much. I kept chasing the poison chalice. If I found a fun, hard job that I thought I'd enjoy, I'd go do it. And that makes for a little unsettled home life, but it certainly opens up your eyes to the world and cultures and everything else. I've lost 2 wives to cancer. It was ovarian cancer, so I'm not a carrier. I finished working for big companies when my second wife was diagnosed as terminal. I was blessed to be able to afford to go home and become just a caregiver. Listen to that. Anybody who's ever been one knows. I found a group to help support each other that were all caregivers, and over half of the caregivers died before the one they were caring for. So I have a lot of opinions on that, which is take care of yourself first, or you're no help to your spouse. Having been used to working too much all my life, when I was a caregiver, one of the big challenges that I thought I had, and I'm kind of glad I went through it because that experience changed my life, is what else am I going to do? Because quite frankly, half the day, I just sat there staring at her, and that wasn't good for either one of us. So I spent a lot of time talking about that. And what I ended up doing was founding a nonprofit, which, by the way, is still going strong now. Let's see, when did I found that? 2005. And it's going strong. It puts 47 or 8 kids through college each year. And they're kids who typically had my background, rural and no prayer, not even a consideration of going to college. So, you know, as I said, I've always worked. I didn't quite know how to not work. I would have never been able to go to college without keeping a job all the way through. I always went out and found a job that had something to do with what I thought I wanted to do. And here I'll point out one little thing that a wise professor told me while I was still an undergraduate was that get a good grasp on what you do not want to do, because what you want to do is going to change constantly. Goodness knows that what I took a job to do right out of college, I cannot imagine doing today. I tried it. I did. I'm not guessing that I don't want to work in hard research. I just know I don't. In terms of where you go, I don't quite understand why we all don't have choices, and we all do make choices. In the beginning, I took a job with a huge company, and one of the reasons that I did it, which worked out well for me because I found it, was that I could change jobs, do very different things, and never have to change companies, and didn't have to move if I didn't want to. In fact, I moved a few times because I found a job I really wanted to do, and it was worth moving to me. But I spent a few years with that, and then, well, it was with IBM. And one of the top executives, well, in fact, the two top executives left the company at the same time. One of them went off to run Ross Perot's companies, and the other one went off to run AT&T. And I went with the one that went to run Mr. Perot's companies because Europe was not performing too well, and he wanted to fix that. So I went off to Europe for 2 weeks and stayed for 5 years because I had more fun in that job than probably anything else I'd ever done. I was running all of the non-US business for the operations. Then when that was over, I became a statistic. Something like 80% of expats or people working out of the country, when they repatriate or return, they change companies. And I did that. And part of it because I'm being courted. Most of the headhunters or staffing agencies, I heard a couple of very impressive ones this morning. They keep track of those people. If a company's willing to pay what it costs to send them overseas, they can't be too bad. And it's a great fishing ground for hiring. And so I switched to GTech. A lot of people haven't heard of it, but it was the largest lottery supplying company in the world, and stayed there till my wife was diagnosed. And that's when I really changed. I went from huge companies to only companies that I ran, bought, did by myself, because there's always something out there you can do to make money. And I've been kind of amazed at how hard, or maybe how not hard it is to go do that. The Associates of Smithfield, I use that one because I founded that company when my oldest kids were in high school, because I thought that I could get them some work experience better than flipping burgers or working in a warehouse or selling candy, which these are the things they were doing at the time. And I'll point out that there's 4 of them, and of the 2 who got into working with me have done really well. The other 2 are taking care of themselves, but didn't get the head start the others do. Because working and running a business is not magic. It's just that you've got to know what you have to do, know what you don't do. Those things aren't hard. Since then, I've done a bunch of things. As a result of starting the nonprofit, I got to know the president of the university, because one of the things I realized I hadn't really thought about was an exit plan. Once I get it started and up and running, then what do I do? Because that's not something I want to do all my life, because it's all fundraising is essentially all it is. And because if it's a good one, people line up to work with you. So I took a chair at a university where I did quite a few things that a for-profit business guy has done that nonprofit people, such as university people, have never done. So some of the things that look like so what to me are things that they've never been exposed to, which is one of the things I'll throw out right now is that as you start looking, do not be afraid of being a rookie. Every time you start over, you're a rookie. And we all know what happens to rookies. They don't perform so well, and if you're not careful, you get run over. But let's see, I found it at the university. By the way, that was great fun. That was great fun. I got to go into an environment that I was not familiar with. I learned a lot. I got embarrassed a lot because I didn't know what they knew. And I would say anybody that goes out as a rookie doing something different, don't be afraid to be embarrassed. We're all going to get embarrassed too. Give it a go. Do not let that, if you're looking for what you've always done, what do they say about if you're not the lead dog, things never change. Let's see, I've bought some companies. I founded a couple of for-profit companies. I've been on the board of directors of nonprofit and for-profit companies. And I've been on a board of advisors to a handful of companies. Right now, I'm working with startup, what would they call it? Startup mentoring, I guess, with the University of Texas, with Baylor, and with Rice University. And I find those to be exhilarating because I'm working with people who are young of mind. When I started, I thought they'd all be college kids, but it turns out almost none of them are college kids. They're people of the age that are on this call, as best I can tell, for the ones that turned on their camera, that have got a good idea and they think they're going to make it work. And everybody on here can have a good idea and try to make it work. You just have to be willing to do what it is. But anyway, that's quite a bit about me. And I'm not real sure how you guys have normally done these because an hour lecture will bore me, much less you. I'd love to take questions anywhere along here. And if I don't see it pop up, tell me. But I've got a few things that I have, well, actually at IBM, at a late career in my IBM, they had people who went outside of their job and did something else for no money, which was how they hire people. And that went everything from selecting the channels you use to hire, what companies you work with, what colleges you work with, arranging the interviews, make sure that they're in-depth but pretty standard, so that at one place they ask you things they won't ask you at the other place. By the way, great idea. If I ever had a big company, I would have one too. But as a result of that, I personally hired hundreds of people, and my team hired thousands of people every year. And I was amazed at how many things that I thought were common sense that people didn't do when they're out looking for a job. The first one that comes to mind is, what do you want to do? I was always shocked at people, what do you want to do? Well, I want to make money. Yeah, duh. But find out what you want to do. Then find out what it takes to be able to do that job. Being a guy who's basically a technology background, one of my favorites was that I'll pick one out of the air. I want to run a data center. Okay, well, those run 3 shifts, 7 days. So are you willing to take calls and do things 7 by 24? Well, most of them would say, well, heck no. Well, that's the job you're saying you want. Are you willing to do that? And if that list means things that you don't know, go learn it. So many people came in thinking, well, you're going to hire me. If I need to know something, you'll teach me. No, for a responsible job, I want you to bring the skills with you. And so if I'm seeking a job, for gosh sakes, I'm going to go pick out what needs to happen and do all I can do to read about it. Today, with online and the internet, and my gosh, Google and I can learn about anything. And so when I talk to somebody and I can sit down and Google something and learn it in 5 minutes, that something that they hadn't done, and they're looking for a job. I've got an idea of, I'll almost say, their character, certainly their interest. And the other one, which you're doing right now, is network. And by network, it's not all people to people. It's going online and learning. To a guy my age, it's amazing what I can do. And I cannot imagine what my kids can do. Now, once you decide what you want to do, go find people and companies that do that. I use Google and LinkedIn almost exclusively. I'm on LinkedIn most days because a couple of my companies are consulting companies. I am a lot right now because I'm selling a company and I'm starting one or two. Luckily, I'm doing it with two of the kids, so they do all the real work. And I hope they're not on here. But go find people that do that work and who hire for that work, and call them up and ask them if they'll give you a half hour of their time, and just tell them, I'm interested in learning about what you do. I think it's great. Will you give me a half hour to tell me about it? And I would guess you'll get a very different answer from the ones who are hiring than the ones who are doing it. But I might point out that if you want the job, the hiring guy's probably more important. But everybody likes to talk about themselves. So that's not a hard thing to do. And once you do that, you get your name out there. You get your face out there. By the way, that's like being on stage, which means if you fall down, that's it for your career as a dancer. So make sure when you go in there, you're ready. Which means that if be the person, when you show up, be the person who has the job, not the person who'd like to learn about how to get the job. If you want to go to work for a bank, wear a suit. It just goes right down the line. If you want to be in the education field, have some degrees. I mean, it's just common sense. But I'm amazed at how many people do not just apply a little common sense. I've never had the problem of thinking I was very special. So that's something that I always did, is go learn about where I'm going, learn about the people who work there, and fit in. We all want to be our own person. That's great. You're trying to get a job. You want them to do something you want, so do the things that they do. The other thing is practice. This is one that I don't think I ever got any of my kids to do this, so guilty. Get in front of a mirror and introduce yourself. Make a list of the questions that they might ask. By the way, that's easy if you've gone out and talked to some people who do what you aspire to do. Find somebody to role play with you who knows enough about what you're going to do and who's willing to do it. Is go in and, I would suggest do both sides, be the interviewer and the interviewee. If you don't know anybody who does what you aspire to do, then there's a pretty good chance you're not going to fit in that well because you're flying blind. The other thing is, for gosh sakes, remember, first impressions count. Go in dressed, act like, looking like the job you have. Get a handshake. Yeah, like I said, I am continually be amazed at people that'll walk into a room with me who want a job, who just sit down. They don't look me in the eye. They don't shake my hand. They haven't Googled my company. They don't, I'm just amazed. And sad to say, that would mean within about 2 minutes, you might have decided that this is not the guy or the gal. Let's see, I made a few notes here. Let me see what I've got here. I think I've said about all of these. Learn, and for gosh sakes, realize that looking for a job is a job. It's a full-time job. And if you don't do that, you're going to end up with something that you did not want. If I had to hit a few of the highlights that I think are important, remember, it is a full-time job. If I have to stress one, that is it. That is it. Sitting at the bar and hoping somebody wanders in to offer you a job is not going to work. Be the person in the job that you want. You know, when they see you, say, if I'm looking for a bank loan officer, when somebody looks at you, they ought to think, you know, that's a bank loan officer. And that's not just to get the job. If you're going to perform in the job, when you meet people, they need to think, oh, that's what I'm working with. Practice, practice, practice. The number of times that people say and and like, and you're given a picture of who you are, may or may not be who you want to be. Make sure you have a list of questions and how you answer them. There's a handful of questions that they're all going to ask. What do you want to do? Why us? Why do you want to work for us? Which is one I'm going to repeat. At the end of the interview, tell them you want the job. I'm also amazed at how many people get up and walk out. And I don't know if they want this job or not. And as an employer, if you don't want the job, I don't want you to have it. You know, nobody wants to be the temporary. That's personal or professional. Network, network, network. And that's not out glad handing. I've never been good at that. So I've always dreaded it, but I do my research, find people in the profession, find people who run those kind of companies or managers in them about what they see. And when you go talk to them, remember that there are many views of the truth, and everybody will give you a different view. We've all heard the story about feeling the elephant. If it's a leg, they think it's a tree. If it's a trunk, they think it's a snake. So whoever you talk to will have a different view of the place you're going to go. And you're going to end up with your own view if they hire you. So just remember that whatever you hear is a piece or a slice of what you're going to see. We're all used to doing tasks and figuring out how to do them better, or if they went wrong, why'd they go wrong? And quite frankly, almost nobody sits down and says, well, it went right, why'd it go right? Because last one didn't go so good. Criticize yourself. How'd it go? Did this really go well? Did it not go so well? Why? At what point did it not go well? If you say, this wasn't a go from the start, and gosh knows I've been in a lot of those, especially when I'm trying to make a sale. And in those, somehow I made the wrong impression when I walked in the door. Why did I make the wrong impression? Did I have on my clown shoes? Was my mind somewhere else? Well, you know, why did things not happen? It happens to all of us, but sit down and figure out what happened. Everybody on here, I would hope, is a professional. Professionals do that on their work constantly. So why not do it on this, since this is your job for a while? And I'll say it again. When you walk out, tell them you want the job. If it's one you don't want, you've learned something in this interview. If you didn't, you certainly were not prepared. And when you have the interview and you've learned something, it's time to go refresh your research on the company and the people. You may change your mind. But if you really need a job pretty soon, at least let you be the decider, not them. Because we talk about what happens after a phase change, because we all have phase changes, some of them truly severe. I've lived through some ridiculously severe. And I know that there's times that I've gone out looking for something to do that I had to have something to do. I didn't really care all that much what. I just had to have. I needed the money. I needed the money, so you just go for it. And by the way, the question of what have you been doing since you left your last job? Shannon talked about needing somebody to help her. Go do it. You know, have an answer for that. I was doing something to keep my skills. I was doing something that was good for humanity. But I was working. I went to the next level on my video game. Probably is not a good one. I have watched all of Breaking Bad. Probably not a good one. But that I donated some of my time. I've had quite a bit of experience. I've had success. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about every one of you. And why not apply that somewhere until I found the right place? And now you're almost, now you're giving them a compliment when at the end of the interview you say, I'd like to work here. And I think I can help you. So I'm not sure how to do this. I'd love to open it up for some questions. I'm hard to insult. It's been done, but that's not a challenge. So I would love to hear what you'd like to hear, if there's a way to do that.
People can put questions in the chat box, or I don't have any problem with them unmuting and asking you their questions if they'd
That'd be
like to do
fine.
that.
That'd be
I have a
fine with me.
question that's not related to what you talked about exactly. It's indirectly. Can you tell me a little bit more about your nonprofit that sends kids to school, including what the name of it is?
Well, the school, it's called Equine Scholars. When I said what's the exit for this, I decided the exit would be to attach it to a large nonprofit. So I found a university president who was interested in starting a program for equine studies, and he liked what I'd done. It was at Georgetown College. It's in Kentucky. I could give you the whole sales pitch that you don't want to hear, but we had it fully funded, and at the year I left, which was 2 years after I started it, we turned it over to the college, and in with my exit interview with the president, and in front of quite a large audience, frankly, I was told I was the most profitable program at the college. And how you do profit and loss in a nonprofit is sort of bizarre, but it was quite successful, and it's kept going. When I did it, I said it shouldn't ever have more than 45, and I think it runs in the 47 to 48 each year now.
And so you said the program sends people to college.
Right. We take people that are interested in working in the equine industry and give them an education at a good, solid liberal arts school, where, of course, you can get a computer science degree or engineering or a lot of things. And they don't have to go to work in the equine industry. But the thing I'll point out is what the equine industry is. It has bankers, it has lawyers, it has insurance people, it has researchers, it has veterinarians. We had 100% acceptance rate into veterinary and medical school out of the program, at least when I left. It obviously has jockeys and horse farms and things, but I dissuaded all of my students from going to study how to do that. Almost nobody has a degree in riding stables. In fact, I have a lot of side stories on that I tell occasionally after a beverage. One of them that just still amazes me was that what I was doing was working so well. I decided to get all of the colleges that had any kind of a horse-related program at their college or university, that we ought to share, because everybody doing everything, because most of them had nothing, would be a monumental task. So we got them together, and so I asked, well, let's start with, why are you here? What's your problem? If you don't have a problem, you wouldn't have driven over here. And the very first question I got was, how do you convince a parent to spend over $100,000 on to train their child to have a minimum wage job? And frankly, one of my sister's favorite sayings is, I've never regretted something I did not say. Well, I'm afraid I didn't listen to her. My answer is something about, I would never do that because I consider that immoral. But so I didn't want anybody like that. We've had them go off to do about anything you can think of. To the music industry in Nashville. Now, that wasn't something I had in mind. A couple of real estate agents, one of which is selling horse farms. That ought to be a pretty good living. But no, we were quite proud. And the kids that were in it, for the most part, were kids that, like me, nobody in their family had ever been to college. They didn't even know how to go about going to college. I get asked every once in a while, did you join a fraternity? And I think I was about a junior before I even knew what that was. Didn't know what they were. So, and I was trying to take kids like that to handle it. But yeah, you could tell you've touched me. I'm quite proud of that. That's something that I did nicely. Something that will honestly help the world. I can't affect the world, but I can affect a few dozen, especially kids that want to not work minimum wage most of their life and go have a real profession. And that's what I pushed them all into, work on some kind of real profession.
Okay, I still don't, oh, somebody has a question? Who has a question? I thought I heard a voice.
Well, let me ask you another way. Did I put all of you to sleep?
I doubt that. The hardest part for people, I think, is when you choose a new career, you're going to go through a change, and you have perhaps gone to school, had informational interviews, decided this is the right path for me. You've gone to school, you've gotten a certificate in something that's new, and then you go to look for a job, and they say, well, you don't have enough experience in this field. We need people with more background. And then plus, you bring a wealth of peripheral experience, not a wealth of experience in your new field, but that doesn't seem to be appreciated. But people that change careers very often have a very difficult time getting anybody to consider their new education as qualification. Can you speak to that?
Look at me. Think I haven't heard that? Yeah, you're too old to learn too. But yeah, I think when you do that, I would certainly at my age, I would prepare the things that I thought it took to be successful in the one I was trying to get. And I'd bring that list to the interview. And I would say, of all these things, there's education and there's training. And you can train a dog to sit up. You can train an engineer. You can train, I shouldn't have said that for all you engineers, but the things about how to manage yourself, how to maintain yourself, how to make a sale, because believe it or not, we're all salesmen. If nothing else, it's selling your boss on which assignment to give you. That there's a long list of things like that. By the way, in my consulting company, I'm regularly brought into companies that are going from one phase to another, which means that the people that helped in the original phase just don't fit. It's nothing against them, it's just different. And those things are never the technical things. It's the, are you a great startup creative thinker versus are you now somebody that can turn that into a product? Are you somebody that can turn that into a large scale product? But that's a tough one because when I'm working with those people, that is exactly what the board of directors wants. I want a 30-year-old who has run 2 companies in this field and been successful, and I want to pay them $10,000 a year. Yeah, I mean, they all have those expectations, and they're not going to get them, not going to get it. But yeah, that might be the hardest one that you're ever going to find to answer.
Okay, we have 2 more questions.
Right.
One question is regarding starting your own businesses. For those here who are would-be entrepreneurs, what steps do you take first?
Know what you're going to do. Research the field. The ones that I see that fail the most often are not for the technical reasons. I told you that I do some mentoring with these universities. And why they call them after the universities, I don't know, because virtually none of them are students. That the thing they want to make and making it work is never what gets them down. It's the financing, it's the marketing, it's how do you portray this thing? It's how do you partner with other people? So if you want to do that, you need to do 10 times the research on that market. I didn't say product, the market. One of the things you're going to find when you start your own business is that you're the little guy. And it's safe. I worked for IBM. They used to say you never lose your job by buying a computer from IBM. So the guys that were selling against us had an uphill battle. And when you do that, there are 1,000 things it takes to run a business. You're going to be a rookie in 900 of them. So find people that you trust to help you, whether you have to hire them or not. I spend quite a bit of time helping people that are trying to get started. And most of the help I offer, which they never want, is that. Here are some things that you're good at. Forget about those. Find people that can help you with the things you're not good at. And you got to find the money. Now, if you're going to start one, this is a great time. It is amazing how many government helps there are right now. It's just amazing. I could never begin to tell you what they are, but there are people who do that for a living. Right now, I'm starting one in South Carolina. I haven't started it yet, but I'm still in the research stage. I'm a rookie again because they have a set of opportunity zones where I can get rebates on things I spend from 3 different government agencies. And this is not something underhanded I'm pulling. There are lawyers that they do this for a living. Is people who have an idea, they'll line it up so it's all legal to get all of those things. And there are reasons for all of those rebates. And in my case, the biggest challenge is they're all in places where there's no job, there are no trained people, that's why they're all offering them. And so when you're going in there, you better go in with your eyes open. It's a lot harder, but I got to tell you, the highs are higher and the lows are lower. There'll be nights you will not sleep. And when something happens, I have a little different reaction to those. When I finally succeed, I try to have done enough homework that I'm not surprised that I succeed. I'm typically crushed when I don't because I've done all this work and I did it wrong because it didn't work. But it's hard. It's hard. I had never started a business before. I was taken out of the large company world.
Okay, here's 3 questions from the same person. The first one is, for some of us, it may be more practical to move into consulting or contracting. How do your tips for getting a job translate to generating business for yourself, where you have to market your services?
Now, the first thing I'll say, because I've started 3 consulting company, 4, I guess, is that the first thing you do is you got to do a business plan, and that's dollars and cents and predicting how much you can sell. And the first mistake I made was to realize that even if your company is up and going in the consulting world, you're going to have to sell your services unless you can get yourself hired as a consultant onto a consulting company, in which it's the same as everything else I've said. But the first thing you're going to learn is you're going to spend at least half of your time out there finding clients. So you got to price yourself at double the going rate. If you think you needed $100 an hour to survive, you better make it $200 an hour, because you're going to spend half of your time working on finding clients, not on doing the consulting.